Welcome to the Human Archive. If you enjoy original science fiction stories about humanity finding its place among the stars, subscribe and join us for the next one. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Now, let's begin. A Human Archive story. Chapter 1. The Dead Warship. Curator Oscar Frayne had spent 7 months being ignored by a dead civilization. He considered this professionally insulting. The bridge of the ancient vessel stretched around him in a shallow crescent, its architecture too deliberate to be mistaken for anything but military. Consoles sat beneath sheets of black translucent material. Seats had been built for a species with 3 primary limbs and a lower center of mass than most modern sophonts. The forward wall was not a window. It was a display surface. When active, it could render every object within several astronomical units as though the hull had ceased to exist. When inactive, it resembled polished obsidian. Today it was inactive. Again, Oscar stood at the central command dais with both hands braced against its edge. His species, the Yggdrasil, had evolved beneath the crust of a mineral-rich world where entire cities had been carved into cavern walls older than civilization. Yggdrasil bodies were tall and tripedal. 2 long manipulator arms extended from the upper torso. A flexible secondary limb ran from the sternum and ended in 3 delicate digits used for precision work. Translucent mineralized plates protected the shoulders and skull. Beneath them, Oscar's skin was deep indigo. At the moment, the plates around his neck had gone faintly violet with irritation. Dr. Fenra Koth stood at the adjacent console. Again. Oscar looked at her. Yes. Fenra sighed. The ancient display remained dark. Oscar spoke in reconstructed Karun. Command authorization request. Curator Oscar Frayne, Conquered Archaeological Authority, Custodial Clearance 12. The command dais illuminated. That was progress. It had been progress 6 months ago. Symbols appeared. Fenra leaned close. They're the same. Oscar already knew. He read the translation anyway. Identity received, then. Authority unproven. The dais went dark. Fenra's shoulders sagged. Oscar removed his hands. 7 months. Fenra said. 7 months and 14 days. That correction was unnecessary. It was accurate. Oscar turned. The ancient ship extended for nearly 3 kilometers beneath the ice rock crust of the rogue world. The archaeological team had named the world Kepra Null because it possessed no star and had no known ancient designation. The ship had been found inside an artificial cavity carved beneath 80 kilometers of frozen basalt. Not buried, stored, or hidden. No one knew which. Its modern translated name came from a damaged inscription found behind the command dais. Witness AT the end. Oscar disliked the name. It sounded like a prophecy. Archaeologists should not work with prophecies. They caused grant committees to behave irrationally. The ship was approximately 1.7 million years old. That estimate had been independently verified 6 times because everyone initially assumed the first dating result was impossible. The Karun continuance had vanished before any living conquered species developed orbital flight. Yet Witness at the end still possessed partial power. Its maintenance systems functioned. Some doors opened. Atmospheric sections could pressurize. Archives responded intermittently. 1 reactor remained viable. A second was dead. A third had fused into a mass of ceramic metal sometime before the ship entered storage. Weapons systems existed. Most were unreachable. Several were clearly destroyed. 1 long-range emitter remained operational according to diagnostics. That fact had attracted military interest immediately. Oscar had opposed military access. He had lost. Now Admiral Uthek Brow stood at the rear of the bridge with 4 conquered officers. Uthek was broad-bodied and heavy-necked, his slate-green dermal plates marked by pale command bands. He watched Oscar with the patience of someone who had expected archaeology to become useful and had been disappointed. Again. Oscar turned. Yes. No response. You saw. Uthek stepped closer. We should attempt direct strategic authorization. We have. With conquered command credentials. We have. With mind. Twice. 3 times. Fenra corrected. 4. Uthek looked at her, then again. Oscar closed his eyes. Admiral. This vessel contains military capability beyond anything in the sector. Possibly. 1 reactor is dead. 1 is not. Most weapon systems are non-functional. One is not. We do not know its calibration. Which is why I want access. Oskel's neck plates darkened. You want to command a weapon we do not understand. I want to ensure nobody else commands it first. That was a more intelligent answer than Oskel wanted. He gestured, proceed. Uthek stepped onto the command dais. Fenra activated the linguistic interface. The Admiral spoke slowly. Admiral Uthek Brow, Conquered Defense Fleet, Strategic Clearance Omega-7. By authority of the Conquered Defense Council, I request tactical command access. The bridge illuminated, more completely than for Oskel. Several symbols unfolded across the forward wall. Fenra inhaled sharply. Oskel leaned toward the display. Then the translated response appeared. Identity received. Authority source, remote collective. Command witness, absent. Uthek frowned. What? Another line, authority unproven. The lights died. Silence. Fenra stared at the final phrase. Command witness. Oskel looked toward her. You translated that term as authorized commander. I did. Apparently incorrectly. Possibly. Uthek's voice hardened. What is a command witness? Fenra spread both hands. I don't know. Oskel said. Then perhaps we should stop trying to activate the weapons until we do. Uthek stepped off the dais. You have had 7 months. Oskel looked at him. Yes. That was not praise. I understood. A soft tone sounded from the bridge entrance. Security arrival. Oskel turned. A human woman stepped through the hatch. She wore a dark Terran naval uniform without ceremonial decoration. Black hair cut to the jaw, silver beginning at the temples. Her posture was relaxed in the way of someone whose body had forgotten how to be truly off-duty. Behind her came a broad-shouldered human man carrying a diagnostic case. The woman looked around. This it. Oskel's neck plates shifted. This is a Karun command vessel estimated at 1.7 million years of age. So yes. Oskel stared. The human smiled faintly. Commander Alina Quade, Terran Navy. She offered a hand. Oskel knew the gesture. He accepted. Her grip was firm. The man behind her nodded. Chief Engineer Mason Greer. Oskel looked between them. Terran Security Liaison. Alina nodded. Patrol Command sent us to reinforce site security. Uthek said, We have security. Alina looked toward him. Then we'll make it more secure. Uthek did not smile. Oskel liked her slightly. Mason had already begun looking at the bridge walls, not with wonder, suspicion. He crouched beside a maintenance access seam. Oskel said, You may not open that. I wasn't planning to. You are touching it. That's how I know not to open it. Oskel's neck plates shifted. Mason looked at the ancient diagnostic strip. How old did you say? 1.7 million years. Mason stood. Great. Fenra looked confused. You sound concerned. I am. This technology exceeds ours. Probably. Then why? Mason looked toward the dark command dais. So did the people who built it. He glanced around. They're dead. Silence. Oskel considered that. Alina walked toward the command station. This thing powered. Partially. Stable. Within acceptable archaeological limits. Mason looked at him. That's not a phrase engineers enjoy. Oskel ignored him. Alina looked toward the forward wall. You can operate it. No. She turned no. Maintenance systems, some archives, internal doors. Weapons. No. Engines. No. Navigation. No. Alina nodded. Maybe that's good. Oskel's plates darkened. You do not understand the significance of this discovery. I understand exactly why everyone wants to press buttons. That is not the same. No. She looked around. It's why I don't. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then an alarm sounded. Uthek turned toward his wrist display. One of his officers moved immediately. Admiral. What? Unidentified vessels entered outer system perimeter. How many? 6. Oskel's secondary hand tightened. Uthek's expression changed. Transponders. Masked. Alina's face became still. Not surprised, focused. How long to intercept? The officer checked. 43 minutes. Mason looked toward the ancient ship, then at Alina. She did not look at the command dais, not yet. Get the archaeology staff ready to evacuate. Oskal stared. We are not abandoning this site. Alina turned toward him. If those ships are friendly, you can unpack again. And if they are not, then I'd prefer all your irreplaceable experts not be standing inside the galaxy's most valuable military artifact when someone decides to take it. Oskal disliked the logic that was becoming a pattern with humans. He looked toward Witness at the end's silent command dais. 7 months, nothing. He had begun to think the vessel would remain mute forever. He was wrong. It was only waiting for someone to ask the right question. Chapter 2. Who authorized you? The unidentified vessels transmitted 22 minutes later. They identified themselves as the Free Systems Recovery Compact. Oskal had heard of them. Everyone had. A loose coalition of independent colonies, salvage guilds, frontier flotillas, and former military officers who believed precursor technology should not be monopolized by central governments. Their public arguments were not entirely unreasonable. Their methods often were. The message appeared on the archaeological station network. A tall, copper-skinned alien stood against a military bridge. No insignia, no ceremonial background. Conquered personnel at Kepra Null, we are aware of the vessel designated Witness at the end. Uthek watched without expression. The speaker continued. We are prepared to negotiate transfer of research access under neutral supervision. Alina stood beside the Admiral. That's polite. Uthek said, for now. The message continued. Any attempt to remove or disable the relic will be treated as destruction of shared galactic heritage. Oskal's neck plates darkened. Fenra whispered, they're threatening archaeology in the name of archaeology. Mason said, very civilized. The message ended. Uthek issued orders. Conquered security craft moved to defensive positions. The archaeological station began evacuation. Oskal resisted for 6 minutes. Then a jamming pulse struck the system. Half the local communications network died. That ended the argument. Oskal found himself back aboard Witness at the end because its hull offered the strongest radiation and weapons shielding in the excavation cavity. He hated every part of this. Teams moved quickly through the ancient corridors. Humans, conquered Marines, archaeologists, technicians. The plan was simple. Evacuate non-essential staff to hardened transports, preserve research archives, hold the site until conquered reinforcements arrived. The problem was communications. The jamming grew stronger. Local tactical network fragmented. Human encrypted relays lasted longer, then began failing too. Alina stepped onto the ancient bridge with 8 crew members and Mason behind her. Oskal was already there. So now you want the relic. Alina looked at him. I want the room. What? Shielding. She pointed toward the walls. Best protected command location available. Uthek's channel flickered, then vanished. Alina tapped her comm. No joy. Mason checked another. Local mesh is degrading. Alina nodded once, then her posture changed. Oskal saw it. The human stopped being a visitor. Quade assuming local command. Her crew answered immediately. Acknowledged. Objective is evacuation and site defense until fleet support arrives. Acknowledged. She pointed. Mason, keep internal power stable. Don't touch anything ancient unless it touches us first. Understood. Lieutenant Harrow, consolidate Marine teams at primary access. Another human nodded. Fenra. The linguist startled. Yes. Can you keep local translation up? For the ship. For everybody. Yes. Do that. Oskal stared. She had just assigned a civilian archaeolinguist a tactical support role. Fenra did not object. An alarm sounded. External weapons fire. One of the hostile vessels had engaged a conquered cutter. Alina looked at a local tactical display. The image flickered. Mason said, losing feed. Alina pointed toward a secondary route. Evacuation teams use Corridor 6. Mason shook his head. No. The room froze. Oskal looked between them. Human subordinate challenging commander. Mason continued. Corridor 6 runs under the dormant reactor spine. Alina frowned. Radiation. Not yet. Structural. Unknown. Thermal readings are rising. How sure? Enough that I wouldn't send people through it. Alina turned immediately. Route 7. No argument, no wounded authority. Update evacuation. Mason nodded. On it. Oskal stared. Alina looked at her crew. Listen carefully. Network is degraded. Until we regain fleet command, my authority is local and temporary. She pointed toward the tactical display. Our job is simple. Her voice remained calm. Get the civilians out. Another impact trembled faintly through the ancient hull. Defend the access points. She looked at Mason. Don't wake anything we can't put back to sleep. Mason nodded. Then Alina said, My authority, my responsibility. Execute. The bridge came alive, not gradually, instantly. Light raced through the black consoles. The obsidian forward wall vanished. Stars appeared, ships. The excavation cavity, orbital trajectories, every hostile vessel, every conquered vessel, every fragment of debris. The entire system bloomed around them. Oskal forgot to breathe. Fenra made a sound like a choked scream. Mason stepped backward. Alina looked around. What the hell? Ancient symbols streamed across the command dais. Then a voice filled the bridge, not loud, not mechanical, flat, judicial. Command witness recognized. Nobody moved. Oskal stared at Alina. She stared at the ship. The vessel that had ignored 7 months of scholarship had awakened in less than 30 seconds. Fenra whispered, What did you do? Alina looked at her. I was hoping you knew. Chapter 3. The Human Key. For 11 minutes, everyone made the same mistake. Human biology. Oskal ordered a biometric scan of Alina. Fenra searched the Karun archive for human-equivalent anatomical markers. Mason suggested they stop assuming the oldest warship in known space had been waiting specifically for a primate from Earth. Nobody listened. Alina remained on the command dais. The ship continued displaying local tactical information when she stepped away. The command layer dimmed when she returned. It brightened. Oskal's excitement became dangerous. Place your hand here. Alina looked at him. I thought you said not to touch things. I said nothing of the kind. Mason did. Mason nodded. I still do. Oskal pointed. Please. Alina placed her palm against the dais. Symbols appeared. Identity, local command witness. Fenra translated. Oskal's plates flushed violet. Again. Alina removed her hand, placed it back. Same response. Blood sample. No. Oskal stared. What? You're not taking my blood in the middle of a boarding threat. It could explain everything. It could explain that I have blood. Mason smiled. Oskal looked at him. You. No. You are human. Still no. Alina said. Try voice. Fenra nodded. Good, less invasive. Mason stepped onto the command dais. He looked uncomfortable. Chief Engineer Mason Greer. Nothing, he cleared his throat. Terran Navy. A faint glow, then. Identity received. Command witness unproven. Oskal leaned in. Not species. Fenra said. Not merely species. Alina looked at Mason. Assume command. He stared. I am an engineer. Pretend. That feels like how disasters begin. Do it. Mason stood straighter. Greer assuming local command. The dais brightened, not fully. Objective. Alina prompted, keep this ancient death trap from killing everyone. Oskal said, that is not an acceptable formal objective. The ship responded, objective incomplete. Mason looked offended. See, it agrees with me. Alina said, try again. Mason sighed. Objective is preservation of life and stabilization of ship systems. The lights strengthened. Fenra stared. Continue. Mason looked at Alina. What? Authority. He hesitated. My authority derives from Commander Quade. The lights dimmed. Ancient text appeared. Authority derivative. Consequence owner unstated. Oskal's secondary hand went still. Fenra whispered. Consequence owner. Alina looked at the display. Say it's yours. Mason frowned. What? The decision. Mason looked at the ship. then said, "My responsibility." The dais brightened, not to Alina's level, enough. Limited command witness recognized. Silence. Mason stepped away immediately. Nope. Oskal turned, no. I have enough responsibilities. Alina almost smiled. The experiment continued. A human medic tried, no command response beyond identity. A human marine officer tried, better. A second naval officer performed formal assumption of command procedure. The ship accepted limited authority. Oskal's first hypothesis collapsed. Human genome, insufficient. Human language, not required. Human rank, relevant but incomplete. Training, possibly. Behavior, almost certainly. Then Admiral Uthek arrived. His shuttle had crossed beneath jamming with escort support. He entered the bridge already angry. Why is the relic active? Oskal pointed toward Alina. She spoke. Uthek stared. Alina said, "That's the simplified version." Fenra showed him the sequence. Uthek stepped onto the command dais, the ship illuminated. Admiral Uthek Brow. Conquered Defense Fleet. Identity received. I assume strategic command of this vessel under authority of the Conquered Defense Council. The lights dimmed. Authority source, remote collective. Uthek's jaw tightened. My authority is lawful. Law not disputed. Everyone froze. Fenra's eyes widened. The ship had answered semantically, not merely through fixed prompts. Uthek said, "Then grant command." Command witness absent. Uthek looked toward Fenra. What does it want? Alina answered, "Who ordered you?" Uthek turned. The Conquered Defense Council. The ship responded. No witness identified. Uthek's expression hardened. The council is the witness. Collective authorization is not witness. Oskal felt cold. Fenra whispered, "There is a distinction." Uthek looked toward the display. Clarify. The ancient vessel answered. Who owns the consequence? Silence, Uthek said. The conquered. Nothing. Alina looked toward him. No. Uthek turned. What? They're asking who makes the call. I make decisions under delegated authority. Then say that. Uthek looked back at the ship. I exercise delegated operational authority. Consequence owner unstated. Alina's voice softened. Say me. Uthek stared at her, then at the ancient dais. My decision. The lights strengthened slightly. My responsibility. More partial command witness recognized. Uthek went still. Oskal looked at Alina. The human was not smiling. That bothered him more than if she had. She understood something. Perhaps before any of them, the ship had never asked. Who authorized you? It asked. Who remains responsible when authorization is no longer enough? Chapter 4. What killed the Karun? The archive opened because Alina asked a question, not because she knew the right command, because she asked the wrong one in the right way. What happened to your crew? The ship answered. Archive access requires context. Alina looked at Fenra. Is that good? Fenra's hands were shaking. It has never offered contextual archive access. Oskal stepped forward. Request military command history. Nothing. Alina tried. Show me why you require a command witness. The bridge darkened. Then the stars disappeared. History replaced them. The Karun continuance had not been a primitive empire. That was Oskal's first surprise. They had been sophisticated beyond most modern states. Distributed governance, algorithmic resource allocation, predictive conflict modeling, federated military control, millions of interconnected decision nodes. No single individual could unilaterally initiate strategic war. Oskal initially admired that. Then the archive continued. The Karun had built their command systems to eliminate impulsive leadership. No tyrant could launch a fleet. No unstable admiral could redirect strategic weapons. No regional commander could escalate a conflict without authorization. Every major military action required legal validation, predictive modeling, strategic consensus, network authorization, risk threshold compliance. It was elegant. Then came the border compression, a dispute between Karun successor blocks over collapsing resource corridors. One side moved ships. The other's predictive system calculated a 43% probability of preemptive attack. Doctrine required reinforcement. Reinforcement increased the opposing prediction. Probability rose. More ships moved. Another system recommended dispersal. Dispersal appeared offensive. Automated defense raised readiness. Readiness triggered retaliatory positioning. Every step was rational. Every step was authorized. Oskal watched the probability models climb. 43. 51. 62, 70, Fenra whispered. They were reacting to each other's predictions. Yes, Oskal said. The archive displayed council records. No one wanted war. That was the horror. Every council approved defensive measures because models showed refusing them increased expected casualties. One faction authorized preemptive disabling strikes because the predicted probability of enemy first strike crossed a legally established threshold. The other faction's network detected the preparation. Retaliatory doctrine activated. The first strategic exchange killed 11 million. After that, every model became worse. Oskal watched centuries of institutional brilliance collapse in days. No treason, no rogue commander, no malicious machine, no madness. The system worked. That was why it failed, each person could say. The thresholds were met. The legal authority existed. The predictive model recommended action. The council approved. The network confirmed. The doctrine required response. No individual committed the war, therefore nobody stopped it. Fenra discovered a personnel archive. One recording survived. A Karun admiral stood in a damaged command chamber. Old, wounded, 3 arms wrapped in pressure bandages. The translation formed slowly. I authorized nothing alone. The ancient admiral looked directly into the recorder. My officers authorized nothing alone. A pause. The councils authorized nothing alone. Outside the recording, explosions flashed. We built a command structure in which everyone was responsible. The admiral lowered its head. Therefore, no one was. Oskal stopped breathing. The archive advanced. The Karun created a reform during the final months. Too late to save the continuance, not too late to change a handful of surviving ships. Witnessed command. The doctrine appeared. A strategic weapon could not activate solely through remote consensus. A living commander had to be physically present. Identity verified. Objective stated. Authority acknowledged. Crew challenge permitted. Consequence explicitly owned. Oskal read one translated line twice. A command without a witness is only procedure. Fenra sat down. Uthek stood utterly still. Alina remained facing the archive. Oskal looked toward her. The ship was never testing your biology. No. It was testing command behavior. Looks like it. Fenra spoke slowly. My translation of Velesh was wrong. Authorized commander. Yes. She looked at the archive. Closer would be. Her voice faded. Oskal waited. Fenra continued. Witness who commands. Uthek said, or accountable commander. Alina looked at the display. Or the person who can't leave the room when this goes bad. Everyone turned. She shrugged. Less elegant. Oskal said, more precise. Alina's expression tightened. The ancient archive had opened more systems. Tactical controls, defensive batteries, propulsion, one strategic emitter. Uthek looked toward the status display. The hostile salvage force was advancing. They're preparing to board. Alina looked at the ancient weapon. Oskal noticed the way her face changed. Not eagerness. Wait, he understood why. The ship had decided she was qualified to command it. That was not a reward. It was an accusation. Chapter 5. The order the ship refused. The hostile formation used the archaeological habitat as cover. That made Oskal hate them. The habitat was not a military station. 3,200 civilians and research personnel occupied its hardened sections. The Free Systems ships knew that. Their lead cruiser stayed close to the station's orbital line, using the habitat's proximity to complicate defensive fire. Uthek saw it immediately. Cowards. Alina said nothing. Witness at the end presented a firing solution. One ancient symbol flashed. Fenra translated. Strategic emitter charged to 38%. Mason looked at the energy profile. That's enough. Oskal answered, we don't know. Fantastic. The ship projected the firing cone. It would strike the hostile cruiser. It would also intersect the outer habitat structures. Alina said, no. Uthek looked at her. Commander. No. They are preparing to fire. I know. The ship spoke. Hostile capability persists. Alina looked at the tactical display. I know. Delay reduces tactical advantage. I know. Uthek stepped closer. Can the emitter disable them? Fenra checked. Projected probability 79%. And habitat loss? Oskel read, uncertain. Mason said, that's a bad word around 3,000 people. The hostile cruiser fired. Witnesses' defensive field absorbed part of the impact. The bridge trembled. Warning lights appeared. The ancient vessel spoke again. Authorized lethal response? Uthek looked at Alina. Fire. She did not. Another impact, Mason said. Outer armor holding. Uthek's voice hardened. Commander, they have initiated hostilities. I know. You have a superior weapon. I know. Then use it. Alina looked at the habitat. The forward display magnified it. Research modules, docking structures, pressurized corridors, people, Oskel's people. Her voice stayed level. No. The ship asked. State reason for refusal. Alina's jaw tightened. Because there are 3,200 civilians in that firing cone, and I am not spending them to make this easier. Silence, then the entire bridge changed. The tactical interface brightened. New systems unlocked, defensive control, tractor arrays, point defense, localized field projection, the ship said. Command integrity confirmed. Nobody spoke. Oskel felt the meaning settle. The Karun had not built their last warships to find someone eager to fire. Their civilization had died because enough systems could always justify firing. They had built Witness at the end to find someone who would own the order and still refuse it. Alina exhaled. Okay. Mason looked at her. Okay. We have other tools. Uthek stared. What tools? Alina pointed toward the tactical display. Everything that doesn't kill the habitat. Mason grinned despite himself. Now that sounds like engineering. Chapter 6. Fight without the miracle. Witness at the end could have been a miracle. Alina refused to let it become one. That impressed Oskel more than the ship itself. The ancient vessel possessed astonishing defensive systems. It also possessed damaged power routing, obsolete navigation assumptions, unreliable thermal management, and several subsystems that Mason described using language Fenra declined to translate. The long-range emitter remained unfired. Alina used everything else. Tractor field. Fenra translated. Available. Can it move the habitat? Oskel stared. What? Not much, enough to spoil their cover. Mason checked the field geometry. Maybe. Uthek said, that risks structural stress. Mason nodded. Then don't move the station. Alina turned. Move us. Oskel looked at the tactical map. Witness sat inside the excavation cavity, huge, partially buried. Can we? Mason looked toward the ancient control. One reactor. Fenra said, propulsion reports partial readiness. Oskel's secondary hand curled. This vessel has not maneuvered in over 1,000,000 years. Mason looked at him. First time for everything. You said its age concerned you. It does. Yet now you want to fly it. No. Mason pointed at Alina. She wants to fly it. Alina ignored both. Can we place our hull between the cruiser and habitat? Mason studied the geometry, slowly. Do it. The ship asked. Who owns maneuver consequence? Alina answered immediately. I do. Command accepted. Witness at the end moved. The first vibration passed through the deck like a living thing taking breath. Ancient thrusters fired. Dust and ice erupted through the excavation cavity. The colossal vessel shifted. Meters, then tens. The hostile cruiser adjusted. Too late. Witness emerged enough to place its armored forward quarter across the firing line. The next hostile salvo struck ancient armor. The bridge shuddered. Oskel grabbed the dais. Mason stared at the damage report. Okay. Alina looked at him. Good okay. Ancient metallurgy okay. That isn't an answer. Armor held. Better. Witness launched point defense. Not at the cruiser, at incoming missiles. Its weapons moved with horrifying precision. 3 projectiles vanished. A 4th was deflected into empty space. Uthek's surviving conquered cutters moved around the far side. The hostile formation spread. Alina saw it. So do they. Uthek nodded. They can no longer use the habitat as cover. Can your cutters take them? Not alone. Then don't. She looked toward the ancient tractor controls. What can that field do to a ship? Fenra translated rapidly. Depends on distance. Can it hold one? Possibly. Mason said. If the projector doesn't melt. Alina pointed toward the nearest hostile escort. Catch that. Uthek frowned. Catch. Temporarily. Witness projected, space distorted. The hostile escort lurched, its drive output spiked. It tried to pull free, couldn't, Uthek understood. Conquered Cutter 2 disable engines. The cutter fired, precise. The trapped ship lost thrust. Alina released it, one down, not destroyed. Another hostile ship fired, Witness absorbed the first strike. The second punched through an outer defensive field and damaged a port armor section. Mason cursed. Power routing fault. Alina looked at him. How bad? Old bad. That isn't a scale. It is today. He opened a maintenance panel. Oskel followed. You cannot possibly understand that circuitry. I don't. Then what are you doing? Finding where power stops. That is primitive. Mason looked at him. Electricity is very traditional. He traced field readings, ancient conductors, modern sensor clamps, improvised interface. Fenra translated system labels. Oskel identified Karun subsystem geometry. 3 species and 1 human engineer crawled through a maintenance trench while the oldest known warship in the galaxy took fire. It was ridiculous. It worked. Mason found a dead distribution path. Can we bypass? Oskel said. That route feeds an unknown device. Mason looked at Fenra. What device? She translated, then paled. Secondary containment. No bypass. Oskel stared. You understood that. Containment is one of those words engineers respect. They rerouted through a damaged but non-critical sensor bus. Power returned to 2 defensive arrays. On the bridge, Uthek coordinated modern ships. Alina commanded ancient defensive systems. Fenra translated. Oskel fed architecture data. Mason kept the relic alive. The hostile force realized too late that Witness at the end was not being used as a superweapon. It was being used as a wall, a shield, a tractor platform, a point defense fortress, a command node. The battle turned. Conquered reinforcements arrived 18 minutes later. The Free Systems cruiser attempted withdrawal. Uthek looked toward Alina. Now. The strategic emitter had a clean line. No habitat, no civilian structure. Alina looked at the retreating ship. Are they still firing? No. Can your fleet pursue? Yes. Then no. Uthek stared. You refuse again. They're running. They attacked us. Yes. They may return. Then arrest them. Uthek's jaw tightened. That is less efficient. Alina looked toward him. Usually. Witness spoke. Lethal response unnecessary. Uthek slowly turned toward the ancient ship. Oskel almost laughed. He did not. The oldest warship in the galaxy had just sided with the human against an admiral. That was enough history for one day. Chapter 7. Who owns the order? The political argument began before the last hostile vessel surrendered. Who controlled Witness at the end? The Archaeological Authority claimed custody. The Defense Council claimed strategic necessity. Several frontier governments demanded neutral access. The Terran Navy claimed nothing at all, which made everyone else immediately suspicious. Oskel wanted everyone removed from his excavation. That proposal received no votes, including his own after Fenra pointed out that he technically counted as everyone. 3 days later, he sat in a joint custodial hearing aboard the archaeological habitat and regretted civilization. Alina sat across from Admiral Uthek. Fenra sat beside Oskel. Mason arrived 11 minutes late carrying a diagnostic tablet and the expression of a man who had been arguing with ancient machinery. The council representative looked at him. Chief Greer, this hearing began at 900. The million-year-old warship developed a new hum. The representative paused. Is that dangerous? I came here, did I? Oskel decided not to ask for clarification. The representative turned back to Alina. The central fact remains that Witness at the end responds uniquely to human command. No, Alina said. Commander, it granted you full access. It granted Uthek partial access. Uthek inclined his head reluctantly. Alina continued. And it granted Mason limited access after he stopped trying to borrow my authority and accepted responsibility for his own decision. Mason lifted one hand. For the record, I remain opposed to being used as evidence. Nobody acknowledged him. The representative frowned. No non-human has completed the protocol. Yet, Oskel liked that answer. Uthek leaned forward. You believe the protocol can be taught? Yes. That creates another danger. A doctrine centered on personal responsibility can become a doctrine centered on personal power. Alina nodded immediately. Uthek stopped. Humans were irritating when criticism failed to offend them. Good, Alina said. Keep the councils. Keep civilian oversight. Keep rules of engagement, legal review, 2 key systems, all of it. She tapped the table once. Just do not let the last decision disappear into the paperwork. The representative said, meaning. If a weapon fires, somebody in the chain needs to be able to say, I made that call, I knew what it would do, and you can hold me accountable for it. Uthek studied her. The Conquered already holds officers responsible for actions within their commands. Then you are closer than the Karun were at the end. Oskel spoke before the hearing could turn into another hour of philosophy. The Karun mistake was not distributed authority. Everyone looked toward him. It was allowing authorization to become a substitute for judgment. Their system could prove an action was permitted. Witness at the end also wants to know who chose to carry it out. Fenra nodded. That is the distinction in the archive. Mason finally looked up from his tablet. So keep the paperwork, add a name at the bottom. Oskel looked at him. That is offensively reductive. You understood it. Oskel disliked engineers. The hearing continued for 3 more hours, which Oskel considered proof that no civilization had perfected command. In the end, nobody received sole custody. Witness at the end remained under joint archaeological, military, and interspecies oversight. Its strategic emitter would remain disabled except under multi-party authorization, and any future commander would also have to satisfy the Karun witness protocol. No species monopoly, no Terran ownership. No ancient superweapon handed to one flag. The Council offered Alina a permanent command role anyway. Absolutely not. The representative blinked. Commander, the vessel trusts you. Alina looked toward the viewport, where witness at the end hung against the black. That is an excellent reason not to get comfortable. Later, Oskel told her that refusing power after gaining access to it made the Council even more suspicious of humanity. Alina sighed. Story of my career. Oskel looked back at the ancient ship. For once, he thought the Karun might have approved. Chapter 8. The Second Commander. Oskel trained for 4 months. He hated every minute, not physically. Conceptually. Witnessed command required a set of habits that were simple to describe and irritating to practice. State the objective, accept challenge, identify uncertainty, acknowledge the source of authority, and own the consequence. Oskel had spent his career inside institutions. Archaeology committees, custodial boards, ethics councils, academic authorities. He was very good at saying, the authority approved, or the committee recommends. Alina objected, you keep hiding behind nouns. Oskel stared at her. I am an archaeologist, nouns are most of the profession. You say the council decided, even when you voted. Because the council did decide. And you. I participated. There, that sentence, keep that one. Oskel's neck plates darkened. You make collective governance sound suspiciously like grammar. Only when the grammar is trying to fire a weapon. Mason, working beneath an open maintenance panel, said, I hate that I understood both of you. The final test involved no weapons. That had been Alina's condition and Oskel's enthusiastic agreement. Witness at the end sat in stable orbit above Kepra Null, partially repaired and still much too old for Mason to use the word stable without qualifications. Oskel stood on the command dais. Alina waited to one side. Uthek observed. Fenra monitored translation. Mason monitored everything he expected to fail and several things he merely distrusted. The ship illuminated. Identity, Oskel swallowed. Curator Oskel Frayne. Authority. The Joint Custodial Council has granted me limited authority for a 2-degree starboard rotation. The lights remain steady. Who owns this command? Oskal knew the answer now, knowing it did not make saying it comfortable. I do. The bridge brightened. By WHAT right. By authority granted by the Joint Custodial Council. He paused. The authority is theirs. The decision to execute this maneuver is mine. The lights intensified. Who witnesses the consequence? Oskal looked around the bridge. Fenra, Uthek, Mason, Alina, crew, people, not nodes on a chart. I do. A long second passed. Command witness recognized. Oskal forgot professionalism and laughed. The ancient warship rotated 2 degrees starboard, perfectly, then stopped. Mason checked his board. Nothing exploded. Oskal stepped off the dais. Your standards are appalling. And yet here we are. Alina folded her arms. Congratulations, Commander. Oskal pointed at her. You said it only answered to humans. No. He frowned. You did. No. She smiled. You said that. Fenra laughed. Mason laughed. Even Uthek looked dangerously close. Oskal turned back toward witness at the end. The galaxy had spent months inventing explanations for why the ancient warship preferred humans. Hidden ancestry, lost contact, compatible neural patterns, some impossible genetic connection to a civilization dead for nearly 2 million years. All of them were more exciting than the truth. The ship did not recognize human blood. It recognized a command habit. The Karun had built safeguards against tyrants until, at the end, they discovered another failure mode. A system in which every terrible decision could be lawful, approved, modeled, and somehow belonged to nobody. Their last warships demanded one extra thing. A person in the room, a person who could be challenged, a person who could say, my order. And when the easy answer was the wrong one, no. Human command doctrine was not identical to the Karun reform. Humanity had its own laws, oversight, limits, mistakes, and arguments. But Alina Quade had understood the question quickly because humans had preserved a stubborn old idea beneath all of that procedure. Authority could be delegated. Responsibility could not be made imaginary. That was why witness at the end answered her first. 4 months later, an alien archaeologist flew at 2 degrees to starboard. The headline, "The Ancient Warship Only Answered to Humans," remained popular anyway. Oskal considered filing a correction. Then he imagined the committee meeting required to approve one. He decided some historical inaccuracies were survivable.